Hey guys, Matthew, and welcome to the third episode of Very Quick Currency Guides. Today we're actually going to be looking at Blight. Now, not blighted maps, but actually farming Blight on the Echoes of the Atlas. So, Blight is actually quite interesting because it's another one of these basically zero investment strategies, and it pairs really well with the last two that I spoke about, which were Heist and Betrayal. But let's get right into it. So right now there's no way to actually force Blight onto your map other than Blight Scarabs and the actual Blight enchants on your maps. So I'm going to be talking about a little bit of those. There is nothing in terms of sextants, nothing in terms of prophecies or anything like that. It's very straightforward. So let's have a look at the options. Option number one is to just buy rusted Blight Scarabs, or you could also go with higher if you wanted to, but since we're going low investment, might as well go with rusted. It gets the job done. It does give you your Blight encounter, which is really the only thing you care about. So these go for anywhere between 10 to 12 chaos or something like that when you want to buy them a few at a time, and they are quite decent value even with the nerf to teal oils that happened like yesterday. Still very decent. The next option is to actually buy maps which already have the areas contain a Blight encounter and to run these. These are essentially the exact same value than a rusted Blight Scarab on top of actually being a map for a fraction of the price. Now there's only a bit of a problem with that. We are going to be focused on Lira Arthain, and I'll explain why I like Lira Arthain over Valdo's Rest in a minute. But the issue is really that these maps are not necessarily the right tiers and not necessarily in the right regions. Now, I had a look at this 3.14 Atlas map overview, which was made and posted on Reddit. Last league, actually, the guy basically just reposted it since the Atlas didn't change whatsoever in 3.14. But as you can see, there are actually a lot of T14 and T15 maps, and only one of each of these are actually in Lira Arthain. We have T14 Barrows and T15 Castle Runes. There's no natural T16 and no natural T13 in Lira Arthain, which is a real shame because this is not worth it. Honestly, at that point, it's way too tedious. So the only real option that we have is Shipyard as a T12 in a 1 in 5. Now Horizon Orbs right now go for about 2 to 1 or so. So this means that you would spend on average 2 to 3 chaos in order to get Shipyard to pop up as your basically map of choice, and you would be spending for a T12 about 3 chaos, which means overall you'd be spending about 6 chaos for a T12 map with a Blight encounter. Now this is a little bit more tedious than outright buying a Scarab, but as you can see, with the Scarab costing, let's say 12C, and a T12 map or whatever other tier map costing you, let's say just a few chaos, you are still saving about half of the currency that you would be spending otherwise. Now, is it worth the time is really the question that you should be asking yourself. In my opinion, I would say no, but if you're absolutely struggling and you have zero currency or your league started a little bit late, this is something that you definitely do to get back on your feet, as you are going to make a ton of currency doing this. With this option, as it's so incredibly cheap. Now that we spoke about the ways to actually force Blight on your map device, let's have a look at basically the options that you have in terms of the Atlas skill tree. We've got 2 regions which actually focus on Blight. We've got Valdo's Rest and we've got Lira Arthain. Now, if we look at Valdo's Rest, I'm not a big fan of it. Outbreak gives you 10% chance for additional Blight encounter, but the thing is, right now in the game, I'm not sure if it's bugged, but there's 0% chance that you get 2 Blights on your map. So since we are forcing Blight with a Scarab or with the enchanted maps every single map, technically we get nothing out of this. Absolutely nothing. It's completely wasted. And then we have Mass Mycelium, which gives you Blight encounters and areas are more likely to contain multiple lanes, which is quite nice. And Blight lanes and Blight encounters have 50% chance for an additional reward chest. Now, the way the reward chest, I believe, scale is with map quantity, I believe. So the higher the map quantity, the more Blight reward chests you actually get per little cluster, if you want to call them that. So having +1, right, having 50% chance to get an additional one, basically means that if you're only getting 1 chest, you have a 50% chance to get 1.5. But if you're getting 3 chests, you have a 50% chance to get 3.5. So how much value does this really have? I would argue very little. Next, you have Blight Titans, which Blight bosses in areas drop anointed jewelry items. Now, there's no way to extract the oils from an item that's already anointed, so technically this is completely wasted. Maybe in solo self-found or something, but realistically no value there. And Blight encounters in areas contain up to 2 additional Blight bosses. So up to means that it could actually be 0, which means useless. Now, if it was actually 2 Blight bosses, that would be kind of okay, because Blight bosses do come with additional rewards, but I would say this is not quite worth it. The best part about this entire region is probably the small nodes, which give you varieties of items contained in 1 Blight chest or lucky. You get 3 of these, which means you would get 3 Blight chests, which the varieties would be lucky, which means that, let's say you would roll a chest and it would roll twice, and let's say the first time you roll, I don't know, rare armors, it would just drop a rare piece of armor typically, but now it's going to reroll, and maybe it's going to give you like a blighted map or something, or like an Exalt or whatever, right? So this is probably what's worth it the most, but in my opinion, Valdo's Rest is not about Blight. I'll be making a video about Valdo's Rest, or especially Harbinger farming, in the next few days. The next video, for those wondering, is actually going to be about Harvest and how to maximize the currency from that. That being said, back on the subject at hand, which is Blight, the next region that we have to look at is Lira Arthain, which in my opinion is really, really good for this. We have Spores on the Wind, which gives you map in areas of 5% chance to contain the areas contains initial Blight encounter, which is what I was speaking about earlier, but because this time you are the one dropping them yourself, you can actually engineer your atlas to make it so you only drop maps of, let's say, T14, 15, and 16 in the Lira Arthain region. The way that you would do that is essentially have 4 Watchstones in the Lira Arthain region, and make sure that you have either 2 or 3 Watchstones in all the other regions in order to only, let's say you type in tier 14, only have, you know, little glowing maps in the Lira Arthain region, because this would be the only region that you actually care about, and everything else you would make sure there's no T14s. If you did that every single time that one of these procs, which is every 20 maps on average, you would actually get technically the value of a Rusted Blight Scarab for free. Now, there's a way to actually scale this, and I'll talk about it in a bit. Next, we have Epidemiology, which is absolutely insane. Blight chests and areas have 100% more chance to contain blighted maps, and blighted maps found in areas are anointed. So that means 100% more chance means whatever the chance is to get a blighted map from a chest, which I don't think we actually know publicly, is doubled. That's massive. Not only that, blighted maps are actually already anointed. That means that you typically are going to get multiple chaos worth of value every time that you do get a blighted map on top of the blighted map itself. And sometimes you can get really, really lucky. You can get maps which are already silver, which already have silver oils anointed to them, you know, opalescent, black oils, etc. And those maps will fetch for a lot more currency because the buyer doesn't need to anoint it himself. And if you want to run them yourself, which I do think is profitable as well, you are also going to turn even more of a profit. So very, very, actually incredible node here. Next, we have Immune Response, which is also good. Blight monsters in areas spawn 100% more non-unique monsters. That means basically twice the monsters from your blights, which means more loot, more maps, more sustain, you know, better rewards, more rewards, etc., etc. Overall, it's just good. And Blight monsters in areas spawn 150% faster, which is also quite nice because blights are known to be a bit slow. So this increases the speed at which the monsters are spawning, therefore increases the amount of blights that you can do in an hour. Sorry about that, not on D&D. All right, next, we also have, as the small chest, we have blight chests in areas of 20% chance to increase to contain blighted maps or oils, which we already have 100% more chance from Epidemiology, and we're getting an extra 60% chance from the small nodes on the Atlas of the Atlas skill tree, which is really, really big. That's where most of your money is going to be coming from. Of course, you also have all the other stuff that drops from blights, but the blighted maps being probably your main source of income. Now let's talk about if you really wanted to focus on it. I will, however, say that in my opinion, it's not worth it to go for the Watchstones, but I'll still talk about them real quick. I do think, however, that it's worth it since we have Spores on the Wind. It's very, very worth it to throw a Cartography Scarab, even a rusted one, in every single map that you run in this region if you have that node, because you're basically able to scale the value of Spores on the Wind by increasing map drops, which is awesome. All right, now let's look at the Watchstone modifiers that you can actually consider. We have Blight chests in areas of 3.6 to 5% chance to contain duplicate items. You could get 4 of these for a total of 20%, which with Secret of the Stones is about 24% chance for Blight chests to contain 200% loot. That's quite good, because that's technically an overall 24% more loot is what you're getting here, right? Which is quite good, but the weighting of this modifier is 14, which means rolling this is incredibly tedious and you would need 4 of them. I would say forget it. The next option is Blight chest in areas of 20% chance to contain blighted maps or oils. Now we're already getting more value than this from epidemiology and nearly the same exact amount of value, close to anyways, from the actual small nodes. So why would you invest 4 Watchstones with 28 weightings, you know, just to increase that a further 100%? In my opinion, it's not worth it. What I would recommend is to, as I previously stated in the other videos, to actually pair this strategy up with the Heist and the Betrayal strategy. So what I would do is I would actually get randomly encountered master missions in areas have increased chance to be Jun, and also master missions from completing maps have increased chance to be Jun. If you get 4 of these, and with Secrets of the Stones, you can increase your chance that whenever you do get a master mission, which is, you know, every few maps or whatever, is going to be, you know, a Jun basically about 50% of the time. Every other master mission is going to be a Jun. And since this strategy paired with the high strategy are both all about speed running maps, right, going very quickly to get as many maps done as possible, to get as much value from the Heist and the Blights as possible, this is going to increase the amount of Jun missions that you're going to be getting significantly. Now, what you're actually going to be doing with the Jun missions, I'm going to be talking about a little bit later on when I talk about these nodes over here, which is the Harbinger nodes, which I had definitely underestimated a little bit, but in my opinion, Valdo's Rest is not going to be about Blight. Now that's pretty much it for the guide. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. The next video, as I previously mentioned, is going to be tomorrow, and it's going to be about Harvest, so look out for that one. I'm going to be talking about how to squeeze every bit of currency that you can from the Harvest nodes and from the 12 Chaos map device that you get this league. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. As always, before I go, I want to say a massive thank you to my supporters: Flame Scorpion, Richard, Willie, Alex, Jordan, Emil, Raymond, Tim, Scott, Lost with the Map, Grimoire, Nathaniel, Kremis, Justin, Kevin, the other Justin, So Nice, Axel, Mercury, and Bizen, as well as a massive thank you to everybody listed down below. And that'll be Matthew signing out. Until the next one, peace.